When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Mostly From Scratch. I am your host, Mr. Munchies. I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. Today's episode, I'm going to show you how I make my pizza crust. This is a recipe that I've been using for 7-8 years now, and it always works for me. This is a recipe that is not quick and easy. This is definitely an all-day pizza dough. It is about 1 o'clock now, and I figure I'll probably be eating pizza around 5:30, 6 o'clock tonight. So if you want to make real good pizza dough, it's worth it. If you want to make quick and easy pizza dough, I will put a link to that at the end of this video for a 2-ingredient pizza dough that is really quick and easy. So let's get into it. Let's zoom in, start going down the list of ingredients, and let's make some pizza dough. Okay, let's go over our list of ingredients that we're going to need. First, you will need 1.5 pounds, 24 ounces. If you don't have a kitchen scale, this is approximately 4.5 cups of bread flour. Next, you will need 1.25 cup of water. Next, we have 1 teaspoon of salt. Next is 1 teaspoon of oil. I'm using a very light olive oil. For our yeast mixture, we're going to need 1/2 cup of water, 1 teaspoon of sugar, and 2 teaspoons of dried yeast. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we need to heat our 1/2 cup water up to about 130 degrees. So let me get this in the microwave, get it heated up, and I'll be right back. Okay, our water is at 130 degrees. Very important to have a good thermometer in your kitchen as well. You don't want your water over 135, so about 40 to 50 seconds in the microwave. So now we're going to add our sugar to the warm water. Get that dissolved in there. And we're going to add our dry yeast. Give that a quick stir. Now what we're doing is we're blooming our yeast. So get it nice and dissolved. Here, let me see if I can get a little close up on this. See, it's dissolved. There's a couple pieces there. But now we're going to let this sit for 15 minutes and let it bloom. Alright, so in 15 minutes I will be back with you and show you our bloomed yeast. Stick around. Now look how nicely our yeast bloomed after 15 minutes. Okay, yeast needs 2 things. It needs heat and it needs food. The hot water wakes it up, sugar feeds it. Alright, so now, before I came back on, I took my second bowl that had my 1.25 cups in it, and I microwaved that for about 80 seconds to bring it up to 130 degrees. So now let's get into the next step. Okay, we're going to take our flour and our salt. We're going to combine them. Just give them a quick mix with the fork. Make sure our salt's incorporated. Now just push your flour up to the side of the bowl a little bit. I'm going to add our oil. Now you want to take your yeast mixture, pour that in, and then take your second bowl of water and rinse your yeast bowl out a little bit. Make sure you get all your yeast in there. And then add the rest of the water to the mix. Now you're going to take your fork and start blending this together. So you come up with a nice crumbly dough. Now if you have a countertop mixer, say for instance like a KitchenAid that has the dough hook on it, you can use that if you'd like. I don't particularly care for it. I think it's a little too rough on the dough. So I like to knead mine by hand. Alright, so let's take a look at our dough here, what we've got so far. See how it's a nice crumbly dough? Alright, so now we're going to turn this out onto the counter. Clean countertop, clean hands. Take our scraper. Get all this excess out of the bowl that kind of stuck a little bit, because we're going to put our dough back in this bowl. Okay, get this off our fork. Now I'm going to take you through the kneading process the way I knead it, because this is very important. Alright, we're going to start gathering our dough together. You know what? Let me zoom in just a little bit more so you get a better look at this. Alright, there we go. Now this should take about 3-4 minutes, maybe 5. Your dough is going to start out a little sticky at first, but it will get to the point where it'll start drying out and it won't be sticking to your hands. Now the reason you knead your dough is you're stretching the glutens that are in the dough so they hold more CO2 that is produced by the yeast, and that gives you a nice airy, fluffy dough, or crust I should say at the end. Get our little pieces, parts in here. Alright, can you see how this dough is starting to come together now? Let's get a close-up on this. It's a little sticky at first. It's not like a biscuit dough. Come on, camera. There we go. But it's starting to come together. Alright, so let's start kneading this. Now, when you're kneading bread dough, pizza dough, something like this, you're not making like a puff pastry or a phyllo dough where you're going to fold and press, fold and press. You got to push it out with the heels of your hand and get it stretched. So it's a press and a turn, press and a turn. And this is going to start stretching all those glutens in there. Now you can fold it over every now and then, but it's a stretch and a turn. Now this pizza dough that I'm making here, this is enough for 2 16-inch pies, 2 good 16-inch pies. Now when we get to the point of making the pizza itself, I'll show you a couple of different options that you can do with your dough. So it's press and turn, press and turn. Let me show you how it's starting to change already. That's been about a minute. See how it's starting to smooth out? It's not so sticky. So let's keep working on this. Now, if you were going to attempt to make this pizza dough, what I highly, highly suggest is to check out my video titled Everything You Need to Know About Pizza Dough. And I will add that link to that video at the end of this one, around the link that I mentioned earlier about the 2 ingredient quick and easy pizza dough. But yeah, I recommend you watch that before you attempt to make this dough. Now, kneading it by hand is definitely a workout. You've got to put some weight into it. Alright, here we go. I guess that's been about another minute, right? See how it's starting to smooth out? Now, meanwhile, I have a pot 2-quart saucepan on the stove here, about half full of water. I'm going to knead this dough for about another minute. That water's starting to come to a boil. What I'm going to do is take my dough, put it back in my bowl, cover it with a dish towel, and then put it in the oven. My oven is not on, it's cold. But I'm going to put the dough on the top shelf and then put that pot of water on the bottom shelf and basically turn my oven into a proofer, because we want to let our dough rise approximately an hour, hour and a half maybe. You want it to double in size. Alright, so my dough is getting really stiff here, so I think I'm going to stop. Take another look at this. See how nice and smooth this is? It's got some stretch to it. So I'm just going to form this into a nice little ball and put it back in my bowl. Now, you will see some people oil their dough. I don't do that. The moisture from the steam in the pot in the oven will keep your dough from drying out. Alright, it's in the bowl. I'm going to cover it with a dish towel, and then it's going to go into the oven for an hour to an hour and a half. Let me zoom back out here a little bit. Okay, so once that time is up, I'm going to come back, show you the dough, and then we'll go into the next step. Alright, so hang in there and I'll be right back. Okay, are you ready to see what this dough looks like after an hour and a half? There we have it. It is basically doubled in size. So now it is time to divide it. Now this is where you can decide what you want to do with your dough. I am going to make one 12-inch pan pizza, and the rest I am going to use for a hand toss. So I am going to turn this out onto my silicone mat. And then divide it by about just a little more than a third. I'm going to use just a little bit more than a third for the pan pizza. Yeah, that's about right. Let me show you what this dough looks like now. It's just a little sticky, but it's smooth, it's silky, it's very pliable. So we just want to roll this into a ball. This is our bigger piece. So what I'm going to do is take that, leave it here on my silicone mat for a second. Now my pan, this is a 12-inch pan, and I gave it just a very light coating with some coconut oil. It takes this camera a long time to focus. There we go. I use this coconut oil on a lot of things. So I'm going to take my smaller piece, roll that into a nice ball. Just take it from the sides and tuck it underneath. Give a comparison. Yeah, there we go. And I'm going to put it in the pan, and I'm just going to press it down to get it started in the pan shape. Now for this pan pizza, I'm going to come back about every 30 minutes, 30-40 minutes, and give it another press. Make sure I get it out to the side. So I'm just going to cover that. I'm going to put some weight on it. Nice 5-pound bag of flour. And this I'm going to put in the middle of our silicone mat. And now I've got that saucepan that I've reheated. I'm going to put just a little bit of that steam in there to keep our dough from drying out and to give it a little bit of heat. Alright, so I'm just going to cover that with the same bowl I used before. Now I'm going to take a towel and cover that. All right, so this dough will sit for approximately an hour and a half to 2 hours. It's about it's about 70 degrees in my house, so it may take a little bit longer. If it's warmer in the house, it won't take as long. So I'm going to let this set for, I'm going to check it in about an hour and a half. Every 30 minutes I'm going to come back and spread this one out a little bit more. And when that is ready to go, we'll start forming it out into our pizza, get them topped, get them in the oven. All right, so hang in there. We're getting close to being done. All right, it's been about an hour and 45 minutes and my dough is ready. So we're going to start cooking here. Before I get into that, things you will need to make your pizza. You will need a pizza peel to either make your pizza on and put it in the oven, or to take your pizza out of the oven. And a board. This is what I make my pizzas on to get them in the oven. And I use the peel to take it out. Okay, let me put that over here. My oven is at 550 degrees. It's been there for about an hour now with my stone in it. So my stone is up to temperature. The first thing I'm going to do is make my pan pizza. This is ready to go. Let me give you a quick look at this. There you go. That crust is maybe a ½ inch thick, and it'll probably puff up to about maybe an inch, a little bit more when it's cooked. So I'm going to go ahead and get this topped and get it in the oven first, because this one will take a little bit longer. And then I'll come back and I'll start preparing this dough over here. Take a look at that. Can you see that? It's doubled in size. It's ready to go. So let me get this topped in the oven. I'll be back and I'll show you how to hand toss a pizza. All right, you ready to learn how to toss some pizza? Here we go. We got our dough all ready to go here on our silicone mat. First thing I'm going to do is take some very fine ground cornmeal. I don't use flour because flour burns. So I'm going to cover my board with some yellow cornmeal. And this is going to keep it from sticking to the board. Okay, now your dough may stick a little bit to your mat. If you don't have silicone mats to put this on, parchment paper or wax paper would work just fine. So we'll get that turned over here. Get it off our mat. And this is actually the first time I've used this mat, and I really didn't know how it was going to react to my dough, but as you can see, it's stuck to my mat. I'm not happy about that, but we'll work with it. Alright, that was a pain in the butt. That never happened before, but like I said, this is a new mat, so it is what it is. So it's on our board. Give it a shake, make sure it moves around, get some of that flour or that cornmeal under there. Sprinkle a little bit on top. Give it a flip. Shake it around. Now, you don't have to worry about if you've made this right. Your dough should be, I don't want to say tough. I mean, it's very soft and pliable, but I mean, it'll hold up to quite a bit of handling without tearing. So start taking your edges, pull them out a little bit. You always want to work from your edge out first. If you want to push it with your hand like this, give it a spin, go ahead and do that. But you don't want to leave too much thin area in the middle. So we're just going to toss it a little bit. Throw it back down here, see what size we got. This lump right here was the dough I scraped off of the mat. All right, so we're at a good, that's a good 16-inch pizza right there. So we are ready to start topping. All right, so topping is kind of important. You never want to center load your pizza. The more wet stuff you put on it, the longer it's going to take. So just be careful on, quantities. I don't personally like, well, I can't say I don't like, I just don't care for pizza sauce. So I have a little bit of anchovy paste here. I'm going to put some of that on. And I have some herb and garlic infused olive oil that I make, so I'm going to use that instead of red sauce. I'm going to pour some of that on. Now I'm just going to take my spoon and start spreading this around. Get it all nice and even. See if I can flatten out that big lump of dough right there. And like I said, this dough will hold up to quite a bit of handling. And if you try tossing it and you get a tear in it, just pinch it back together and you'll be good to go. Just make sure there's no holes in it when you start to put your sauce or oil on it. That way it doesn't leak through to your board and make your dough stick when you're ready to start sliding it off. Alright, so that's pretty evenly distributed there. Cheese is next. Never put your cheese on last. Cheese always goes on first, especially at 550 degrees. If your cheese is on top, it's going to burn. So we're going to put some cheese on there. And that's not enough cheese. Anybody knows me knows I'm all about the cheese. So we get some mozzarella. There we go. Get it spread out to the edge. All right, give our board a shake. Make sure nothing's sticking. There we go. Things are sliding around nice. Now let's get some ham. Got some little nuggets of diced up ham here I'm going to throw on. Bring it out to the edge. Remember, never center load. Learned that a long time ago when I worked at a pizza establishment. Okay, now I'm going to throw on I've got some crumbled Italian sausage. And don't worry about if your pizza's not perfectly round. You're making this for yourself. It doesn't matter if it comes out square or like a rectangle or a trapezoid. It's still going to taste the same. All right, so I got some pepperoni here. And quality of your pepperoni is kind of a big deal as far as how much grease you're going to get from it. I just use the Walmart brand, which is probably made by Hormel, and it's okay. It's a little greasy, but it's got a good taste. Probably, if you use turkey pepperoni, you probably won't get as much grease on it. And of course, you always top your pizza the way you want. And I'm a carnivore, so I like the meat. Meat and cheese, there we go. That's the way to make a pizza. Alright, throwing down these pepperonis. I know, it's exciting, right? Pepperonis. And like I said earlier, if you guys are going to attempt this, make sure you watch the video that I recommended about what you need to know about pizza dough, because I'm going to cover a lot of things in that that I'm not covering here. All right, let me wipe my hands off. Give my board a shake one time. Okay, this is ready to go in the oven. I'm gonna put it on the stone, give it a couple shakes as I pull the board out from underneath it, and that'll be set and ready to go. And then I'll give my pan pizza, which is already in there, I'm gonna give that a half a turn, check it, see how done it is at this point. But this is gonna go in for probably about 8 to 10 minutes, depending on how brown you like your crust. So here it goes. All right, that is in, and it instantly starts cooking because that stone is at 550 degrees. I'm gonna cover that stuff too in that other video, so like I said, make sure you watch that. All right, so give me a couple minutes, get my pizzas done, get them out of the oven, come back, cut them up, show you what they look like. All right, hang on. The pan pizza is out of the oven. The hand toss is ready. You guys want to see this thing come out? Get my peel under there. Look at that. Is that amazing or what? Bubbling. Look at that crust. It's all nice and brown. Underneath is crispy. Yeah. That is killer pizza right there. It's not exactly round, but like I said, it doesn't matter. Let me fix my focus here. There we go. Okay, so the pan pizza came out about 5 minutes ago. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this one out of the pan of gloves. These things are great. So by oiling the pan, it guarantees that my crust is not going to stick. That came right out. Beautiful, huh? Put that in there. All right, so the pan pizza I can go ahead and cut now. I'll show you that while the hand toss is cooling down. No, I don't want to put my back to the camera, but I have to. Okay, let's hope this isn't too hot. Yeah, it's still steaming. Whew. All right, grab a plate, put this on. All right, let's get a close-up on this. Okay, look at this pizza. That's about a 1-inch crust right there, about 1 inch thick. Yeah, well, I'll say 3/4, okay? Look at the bottom. Nice and brown. Listen, can you hear that? Crispy. That is a nice pan pizza right there. It's done all the way through. And that took about 10 minutes, 10 to 12 minutes. You can tell by your crust on the top here as it starts to get brown. It's about time to pull it out. And that's where not center loading plays a big part, especially on your pan pizzas, because if you put a lot of wet stuff in there, especially in the middle, your dough is going to come out raw, even though your edge is cooked. All right, so that's the pan pizza. I cut into this hand toss here. Sorry about my back to the camera. And this paper that I'm cutting on is great. You can pick this stuff up. It's like painter's paper. You can get it at Walmart. Actually, I got this little small roll at the Dollar Tree. All right, let's check out our hand toss here. What do you think about that? crust underneath. So yeah, that's a good pizza right there. See that pepperoni grease dripping off? That's New York pizza right there, buddy. I'll tell you what. Yeah, because hey, I'm Tommy Spoons and I'm from out on the island, you know, so we got to get good pies, huh? All right. So it's cooked all the way through. That is about a quarter of an inch, maybe a little thicker than a quarter of an inch crust right there in the middle. You got your nice crust on the side. All right, so let me pull a piece of this off so you can take a look at it closer. Yeah, buddy. You see that? This is a real pizza crust. This is bread. This is not all-purpose flour. Don't you want some right now? See the way it pulls? All-purpose flour doesn't do that. Got to use bread flour. What do you think? You gonna give it a try? I would. I do. All the time. All right. Let me pan up a little bit here for you. Yeah, pizza. All right, now that I'm in frame, like I said, very important. If you're going to try this recipe, try to follow it exactly. Make sure you check out the Everything You Need to Know About Pizza Dough video. I'm going to post that here. If you don't want to do this and you want something quick and easy, I'll put the 2-ingredient pizza dough recipe up here. The subscribe button is going to be about right here. Make sure you press that. And in conclusion, pizza. What can you say? So I'm going to call it an episode. I'm your host, Mr. Munchies. This has been another episode of Mostly from Scratch. So everybody plate up and chow down.